training or which we only found out about today. Welcome. Tom's going to give me instructions. My name is Kate Stubbers and I'm the spokesperson for Strathbogie Voices. So I'd like to welcome you here tonight to this community forum with the Shire of Strathbogie representatives. I'd also like to acknowledge the Indigenous people of this land in which we meet and pay respect to their elders past and present. Look, Strathbogie Voices is a community volunteer group. So we're all ratepayers of the Shire of Strathbogie and we are all volunteers. We're not a single issue group, so we have, for example, no position on the streetscape landscaping in Nagambie, but what we are interested in is community priorities and community issues that will benefit our region. And what we're particularly interested in is having these priorities reflected in government programs, policies and procedures. So we're an advocacy group. We are motivated by a well-informed functioning democracy that has the capacity to cope with the complexity of issues and the community needs. So at the heart of this is transparency of decision making and accountability of elected members, and one of the key pillars of our democracy is local government. So we welcome the Shire of Strathbogie Mayor, Councillors and the CEO and thank them for partaking in this community forum. Strathbogie Voices was formed late July last year. We did about 4 months of community consultation that I'll just quickly tell you about as a start to this. We collected feedback and we're going to focus on the local government issues in that feedback, and this forum is really an opportunity for the Shire to respond to some of those issues coming out of that consultation process. So you hopefully all have a program for tonight, but I will go through some of that community consultation. The CEO, Mr. Steve Corker, is going to take the opportunity to go through a few council priorities at the moment, and then I'm going to introduce our independent facilitator for tonight, Jan Carter, who's a local resident in Nagambie. She'll then go through the questions. Let me quickly just go through what we've done as a group up to now. We set out on this community consultation process and we really had 4 key objectives in mind. We wanted to understand community values and issues and priorities. We wanted to understand what residents believed was a strong, cohesive community. What did that look like to people? We wanted to understand what good representation of local government meant, and then we wanted to understand what the key issues were in the new seat of Euroa. And we did a fair bit of lobbying, I guess, or advocacy, like a meet the candidate session in the lead up to the state government. So I won't touch on those issues, the state government election last year, so I won't touch on those issues tonight. So this is what we did. We got hold of media, both the traditional and social media. We had about 487 people respond to this consultation process, and they were believers in this process, I guess, and interested in this area. We had a website and an online survey forum, and we had hard copies available for people to take. We developed a kitchen table discussions, and we sat in this room with a group of about 40 people talking through what the Nagambie's issues were. We also did that in Violettown, Euroa and Strathbogie. We ran some make your vote count sessions last year, but that was for the state government election. So this was over a period of 4 months. So quickly, what did we find? This is how the respondents were placed. So these larger numbers here was really at forums, so they were more the quantitative data that we got out of them. And then the smaller ones here were actually the kitchen table discussions. So we had discussions in qualitative ones. They're the numbers that turned up at those. Ages of female, we've got that about right. But the age one we could do, and we acknowledged openly that we could do a lot more with youth, I think, in this area. So we're going to sort of proceed down that path a little bit in the future. So what were the community values? The highest scoring community value was the sense of community that people valued. Running close to that was the local environment. Proximity of Melbourne was a good one that came up, which is lucky it came up high because we can't do much about that one, although Melbourne is getting closer to us. And public transport, issues that we sort of targeted at the state government level were also highly valued as a group of respondents. If you can't read this, all this information is on our website, so you can have a look at a copy of the report. It looks something like this. So the priority issues. The first one up there was the natural environment, followed by public transport, climate change and sustainability, business and industry, tourism. Public health and planning. So a combination, I guess, of local government and state government issues were our key priorities. What was a strong cohesive community to people? These responses were really in two levels that we've divided them into. So the first level was what the qualities of a strong cohesive community are. So I've illustrated that by a quote. What makes a strong community? Working together, listening to each other, being open-minded and support from government for community initiatives. So they're the qualities of what a strong community are. The other level of response was really the services that a strong community might provide. So adequate employment opportunities, training in the form of apprenticeships, certificate courses, availability of health, and associated transport services, support for the elderly and people with disabilities, and then respect between people and local government, which is really equality. But they're the two levels of responses for a strong community. From a local government point of view, we first asked about representation, and there was two sort of types of responses here. These quotes kind of sum them up. So someone who listens and has time to know a spectrum of their community, also someone who is able to see beyond their personal bias and exercise meaningful empathy. That's what someone said was a strong local government representation. This other one is approachable, personal, genuinely interested in public service, advancement, not someone on council for their own self-importance, councillors who are not intimidated by the CEO. Pretty straight to the point with that one.
Get around all that.
In terms of how adequate local government representation was, 85% of our respondents said it was not adequate. 15% said it was adequate. And here's some quotes that sum up that. Too many decisions are made in secret. By the time the general public know what council has debated, it's too late to question. It does seem to be difficult to have consultation with local government. Or local government is difficult as residents are generally only interested in their opinion, their streets, and what really matters to them. So finding balance can be difficult where local councillors have to be all things to all residents, react appropriately and provide real and visible benefits to as many community members as possible. That one sort of sums up the complexity, I guess, of local government. So this was an interesting one we thought, and it's quite close with what it comes back at. The question was, how do we form stronger relationships between community and local government? So the highest performing ones, just marginally, were things like their community consultation and decision making, and councillors who are prepared to host community meetings around key decisions that need to be made. That was sort of the general responses coming back. Interestingly, the last, or the least favoured one, just marginally, is the rate strategy. So it's sort of like we're thinking that if we get that consultation process right and people are engaged in decision making and they feel like they've been empowered by it, And the little issues, not little, but the single issues like rates or roads or rubbish, sort of become maybe secondary. So it was really this community consultation that people were interested in. We as a Strathbogie Voices had a local government and sustainability workshop in Euroa the other day, and we had some experts from local government come and speak to us from around the traps. Out of that workshop there was a series of themes that were developed, and these themes were things like mobilise ourselves for the next council election, the community appraisal of a CEO position, just general themes, develop a councillor candidate questionnaire for councillors or for candidates who want to stand. Let's hear what they think about issues first. But also things like educate ourselves in council processes and educate ourselves in the roles and responsibility of council. And what we're going to do on the 13th of April is develop these themes into action plans for us. So we would really love, if any of you are interested in coming over to Euroa, maybe we can have a day here if there's a lot of interest, in pulling these together into action plans. Because some of the things that come out we thought were really important for us as a group to take forward. So that's happening on 13th of April in Euroa. Speak to us afterwards if you're interested, because we would dearly love to have you involved. The full report is available on our website for this, and there's a few other workshops that we have coming up, one on climate change and superannuation, and the other one is that action plan development that I mentioned before. I guess, just in conclusion to that, it is only the start of a process, and it is with people who are genuinely interested in this. But at least it gives us a bit of a foundation to think about what our issues are, what our priorities are, and start the discussion with Council about transparency and accountability to those issues. And that's what tonight's all about. So we can discuss that in question time, at the question time at the end of this. And I might now pass over to Steve Corker to talk through some council issues that they've got.
And you'll see this evening that we've actually filmed the activity here and we're recording us. And if anyone they don't want to appear on screen on that, please let us know, because we don't just want to take your opinion without voice. Is that
Thanks for that, Craig. I'll go through a few PowerPoint slides, like we did last night, about historical data, the staffing income and expenditure, and the draft budget that was adopted last night at the council meeting. Looking at the top graph, that was the long-term financial plan that the current councillors in 2012 adopted, and that's the blue line. And you'll see that for this year it was a 6% rate increase. Council last night adopted a 4% draft budget, which will be out on exhibition from the 8th of April for 28 days. And during that time you can put a submission in, whether it's via our website or dropping it into the customer service centre here. Question that's always raised is in relation to the number of staff at the council. If you have a look at the far left-hand side, looking at the screen, there are 125 staff back in 11-12. And it's anticipated for the 15-16 year, 94 staff, which is a drop of 31 equivalent full-time, which is 50 positions. 87% of the staff actually live in the Shire, so when looking at redundancies or staff restructures, we need to take the economic benefit to the actual communities as well, because a lot of them actually work on a volunteer basis in various areas. What that means for us as an expenditure is that the middle graph there, $9.7 million in payroll, where it's anticipating $8.3 million or a $1.4 million drop in payroll, which reduces total expenditure, which will be one of the lowest out of all local government in Victoria. This prepares us very well for the state government's platform of CPIs in local government. The expenditure, we've kept that round about the same at 24 to 25.5 million, and that again is through restructuring of the organisation and the shared services we do with Shepparton. Our capital works program that was adopted last night is around about 6.9 million. The spike the year before was through the Regional Growth Fund of the previous government that provided funding for a significant amount of capital works throughout the Shire. This presentation also will be available on the website. Current strategies that are up there range from health and wellbeing, youth, tourism, through the Sustainable Development Reference Group to township structure plans. I don't expect you all to read that. The Victorian Council's received $6.1 billion in funding from various governments, departments, and we deliver over 100 different services, not just road rates and rubbish, in relation to whether it's the waste recycling area, whether it's our library service, curbside recycling, or public street lighting, which doesn't come free and does cost council money for public street lighting. In addition to that, this Shire provides waterway management of the Lake Nagambie and the Golden River and the Regatta Centre operations, the mobile customer service centre that we've put there at the VIC. We look after 3,300 kilometres of roads, event management, and we have 507 bridges and culverts, which is one of the most in Victoria of all local governments due to the plains that we live on. The shared services, and this is where we are restructuring the organisation and looking at significant savings, is with Shepparton. Graders without borders is where that our graders, instead of stopping at the borders, actually travel into each Shire. The staff of each Shire has been trained in best practice. What that meant was we didn't replace a grader at a cost of $340,000, which again reduced our expenditure. Payroll services, we'll be centralising those. Our training is centralised. And the asset management bridge program that I've got listed below there. Again, with Shepparton, we were the first two councils to submit to the federal government, and we're only one of 18 councils in Victoria to receive $400,000, which will be shared on Kerwin's Bridge and Kelly's Bridge. Our waste services will be introducing a 3-bin system, so organic waste. What that will mean is from 14 to 15, the waste charge will go from $507 to $520. What it means is reduced landfill costs, reduced waste that goes to the landfill, which is better for the environment and reduces our overhead costs yet again. Some of the challenges we face, the federal government froze our federal assistance grants, so that's $1 million over 3 years the council's lost in funding. Our library funding, so to run our library service, with Shepparton and Laura councils is $269,000, an increase of 3%. School crossing funding, what's happened there with the cost shifting, it used to be 75% from the government, 25% council, now it's 75% from the council and 25% from the government, so again a cost shifting. As mentioned previously, the local government infrastructure fund under the previous government has now ceased, and that's a reduction of $1.877 million in funding to this Shire. Roads to Recovery is probably the only guiding light. We've received an extra $1 million for our roads for this financial year. We'll be faced with rate capping in whatever form that will be for rural councils. And the Country Roads and Bridges Fund that the previous government gave to rural councils, the 40 rural councils, $1 million a year for 4 years. We've lost that also. The budget, as I said, adopted last night as a draft and will be on exhibition for a month. It includes a 4% rate increase, which is the lowest in the history of the Shire. So in 21 years, that's the lowest rate increase, with a $126 service charge made up for the transfer stations and the tree management program, which is a result of community input that we've had through the action groups and various other groups. Capital Works program of approximately $6.9 million. The implementation of the 3-bin system and again, the 3 family pool passes and the free tip voucher. You can see below some of the major spending throughout the Shire that will occur that makes up the 6.9 million. The rating strategy that was also adopted as a draft last night, feels like last year, was an increase of 4% over 4 years, the next 4 years, which equates to about 52% of our revenue. The pensioner rebate scheme, when it was first introduced, was 50% of your rates, but it's hit to $208 and a fire services rebate of up to $50. The renewal infrastructure gap, that's how much money we've got to spend on our infrastructure, currently is a $9 million gap, and we hope to close that in 21-22. What that means is we have excess money as such to be able to spend on new or innovative ideas throughout the Shire. I've listed below there the differentials, which is how the rates are split amongst the various categories in the Shire, and the rural farm rebate, which is currently at 85%, gives the farming community a rate discount of about $1 million. The draft council plan, again, that was adopted last night. The vision, mission and goals are set by a new council within the first 6 months of the new council, so in 2012, and reviewed on a yearly basis. The number of goals are currently 7. There's 20 strategies within that, and there's 83 strategic indicators. As I put up there, the draft documents are available from the 8th, which is next Wednesday. They're on exhibition for 28 days, and I'd recommend anyone to have a look at them.
For this question time. She's independent of our group, and we thought that was important. You're lucky enough to have Jan Carter living in Nagambie. She's worked as a social worker at the community coalface and as a writer and researcher. She's been a Director of Social Policy and Research at the Brotherhood of Lawrence in Melbourne and a Professor at 2 Melbourne universities. She's also been awarded the Order of Australia for her work in social welfare. So would you please welcome Jan to facilitate this?
Very much, Kate, and it's great to see such a crowd here tonight. And I think perhaps the first thing I'd like to do as an independent chair is to thank both the Open Voices and the Council for being able to get together and to put on it. Just very recently I was looking at some family history, which those of us of a certain age start doing, and my ancestors actually came from Massachusetts. The Carters actually came from Massachusetts, and I discovered there's a great tradition of the town as the absolute bedrock of democracy. So, given that I found that out just when Kate was asking me if I chaired this meeting, I felt that obviously as a Carter, I simply had to agree. So what we're going to do is actually put some questions that people have put to us in advance to particular councillors for their response. And we're going to give them a very strict time limit because we know what people in local government sometimes used to do, and they will kind of get a bell warning when it's time for them to sort of wind up. So we're going to run through about 10 or 11 questions like that. And then we're going to open it up to people to put questions, actually from the floor. And I need to say the very first question I've been asked to take from the floor comes from a young person. So Jack, if you're in the room, just be prepared to come and ask the first question when I call out your name a bit later. But I think the very that's a pre-prepared question that we'd like to do is a question for the Mayor, Councillor Swan, and it actually relates to Nagambie. The question is really, Mayor, about the proposed beautification of Nagambie and the streetscape. What consultations taken place about the plans for this, and what's it cost so far, and what's it going to cost in the future?
Thank you, and it is great to see so many people here. We've got a fantastic turnout. I do wonder for some of the extra turnout we have used because I believe there was a notification in the paper that we had a plan to move the Senator. I'm here to tell you that is not correct.
We are absolutely not on our agenda to move the Senator. There has been discussions in the past with the RSL over a number of years as to whether that was something that they would like to see happen, to actually revamp and to make it safe for people on the street when we have ceremonies. But that is a discussion that's been ongoing, and we do not have a plan to do that. So, rest of the I'm telling you that. All the councillors here, other than Pat Scorer, who happens to be working, he's a police officer and he's working on a fire highway at the moment. So, here's an apology. So, they're all here and they're all saying the same thing. It's not happening at this stage at all. Speaking of the time, I do apologise. Well, the plans are concept plans that came out of this strategy that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, and nothing in that is set in concrete at this stage. And there has been that discussion, and a lot of those discussions that did come through about Senator, those conversations came from the community. So it's not just a council decision to try and do that. And I'd also like to, I'm just going to very quickly, sorry, and I know I think my time has probably started, but I'm on a different frame because I wanted to put the community's mind at rest. I'll very quickly read through the processes of so far of the community consultation that's occurred about looking at the main street of Nagambie. And I did a bit of research, and as far as I could go back at this stage was November 1990 with the Shire of Golden, and they had a township strategy plan, general community with additional opportunities to provide information and feedback. I've still got 2 pages of consultation. I'll skip through, you can have a look at this stuff it's on the website, all of the engagement strategies, everything is there on the website. 2 more recent times funding. 2014 we had working drawings for the roundabout were completed. This is after we had more consultations, and the map has been up on the Information Bureau wall for 3 years for you to have a look at the whole lot of stages. Funding, that's concept drawings. Funding, the drawings were completed in 2014. The steering committee was put together. The current funding for the southern entry is $500,000 by Rural Development Victoria and $375,000 from Council. Originally, Council was aiming to provide $125,000, but when the change to the federal government occurred, it lost that money. So the Council assisted by providing extra grants to complete the works as much as possible. At this time, funding for further stages from the state and federal government is in the lap of the gods. So no further council funds are committed, although council continues to advocate to big roads and governments to assist us to provide the improvements we need to increase our economic viability and livestock for future generations. Look, this has been a thing that's been going on for 25 years with this community to try and do something to upgrade our main street post-bypass, because it's been a real concern for the community. We've been criticised for over-consulting and not getting on with the job. We're now getting on with the job.
25 years. You would understand this about what the street change.
Could you hold that till later? We mustn't interrupt.
So, what I'm saying to you is there's a lot of documentation on the website you can go to if you want to have another look at it. There's documentation at the information centre. Please go and have a look at it. The stages are not in order as they come about. It's about funding. The roundabout was the one item that the community, both ends, the entry to this town, were identified by the community groups, and there was presentations from Vic Roads and the rest of them at both the tourism and action groups. They were identified as your main priority, get the entry and the exit of the town under control. That's what was required, that was what was asked for, and that was what was pushed for by this community. Well, it was the people that came to the meetings, and that's always the case. The people that come to the meetings are the ones that make the decisions. You need to be there.
Thank you, Mayor Deborah. That may be an issue people will follow up a bit later when we're asking questions from the floor. In the meantime, I think it's fairly important, just because there's so many of us, that we try to keep to the process that both the community group and the council have agreed about this meeting. So the next little bit of the meeting is going to be fairly formal, and then we'll be able to open it up to general questions towards the end. But in the meantime, since a number of people have submitted questions in advance, it's important, I think, that we fairly answer those questions first. So what I'm going to do now is introduce you to a particular councillor and ask that particular councillor a question on behalf of somebody in the room, and then that particular councillor will answer. So the next person I'd like to introduce you to, for those of you who don't know him, because he's one of our very own, is Councillor Perbury. Stand up and wave, Councillor Perbury. The question I'm going to ask him on behalf is this. It's a question about rates, and I know that's been a matter of great concern within the community. The Shire of Strathbogie has the third highest level of rates in Victoria, and they're almost double that of the next neighbouring shire in Mansfield. So the question is, what specific benchmarking or other activity has the Shire undertaken to determine how services can be delivered at a level expended by these other local government areas? Councillor Perbury.
Good evening, everybody. I'm already going to deviate from the script, I'm afraid, because there's two questions that I'll be answering tonight. This question, as Madam Chair has just read out, and also question 7. But I'd like to spend 10 minutes answering both at the one time because they're interconnected. Now, I don't know if you've got a copy of the question with you. If you haven't, perhaps I'll read out question 7. So, the first question will be covered, and question 7, which is, as I say, related, is from the 2016 rates. From 2016, rates will be capped to inflation by the state government unless councils can show just cause. What will the Shire's rating strategy be in 2015 and 2016? I think you've got an inkling of that already, but I'll cover that more fully. Is that better? Yeah. Our Shire rates are amongst the highest in Victoria, and this has been the result of high rate increases and strategies of between 6 and 15% for a very long period of time. This fact has been known for some time, and certainly prior to the last council election. I was elected on a Shire merger, amalgamation and restructure platform, as certainly many here would know. But after the 2012 elections, it became clear to me that there was little support amongst the newly elected councillors for a merger of our Shire with an abutting Shire. That being the case then, pragmatically, the only other way that our Shire could get its financial house in order was through cost cutting, restructure, and resource sharing with other shires. I just want to give you a sense of the process that we've been through to get to where we are today. We attended a number of sustainability workshops, that is councillors and senior management, and we compared our Shire's performance in a number of areas to other Victorian shires. This was certainly a very useful benchmarking exercise at the time. The workshops also clarified the financial situation of our Shire, and it became clear that there are a number of ways that the Shire could restructure, decrease its cost base, and increase income without the need for continual high annual rate increases. Council and our CEO agreed a cost-cutting and restructure plan, and this plan has been steadily and I think successfully implemented since late 2013. The Shire has cut around $1.4 million from expenditure since then. which, to put it into some sort of perspective, represents about a 10% rate decrease. This council's first budget was for the 2013-14 financial year and included a 7% rate rise. The second budget this financial year, a rate rise of 5.5%. Steve Crawford has presented the council draft 15-16 budget tonight, which, as he's mentioned, includes a 4% rate rise, which is definitely the lowest rate rise that this Shire has enjoyed since amalgamation. This budget also includes a loan repayment of $636,000 of our $2.1 million debt, a $300,000 contribution to our infrastructure reserve fund, which will increase it to $700,000. And with all that, we'll still end up with a cash surplus of around $180,000. This has been achieved through Shire services, infrastructure maintenance or infrastructure replacement. And we continue to close the infrastructure renewal gap, and we will have it closed by 2021-22. The infrastructure reserve fund will allow us to fund up to $1.5 million of extra road upgrades or bring forward bridge replacement as government grants become available. Our CEO has also presented Council's view of the Shire rating strategy for the next 5 years, which includes an annual rate rise of 4%, which I hope you agree is good news for our long-suffering ratepayers. And I might add, this was going to happen regardless of which government won recently in Victoria. The Labor Party, as has been mentioned, is going to mandate an approximate CPI rate rise across all Victorian shires as of the 2016-2017 financial year. And this shire will be able to meet this requirement because of the changes that have been made in the last 2.5 years. My personal belief is that a rate rise of 4% in future years will be an absolute maximum, and that Council should be able to deliver even lower increases in the years to come. You might ask, why is this possible? There's been little allowance for cost reductions, which will come from resource sharing with other Victorian shires. The areas that we're still investigating are within legal services, asset management, administration in the areas of payroll, IT and planning, and procurement and purchasing. It's hard to quantify the dollar savings, which will certainly be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's been no allowance for service review savings, apart from the recent tax savings which will occur next financial year. The services that will be reviewed are already mentioned in our current Shire planning, for those of you that have got a copy, on page 29, and there's no doubt that these savings will be significant. And there's been little allowance for increased Shire rate income due to future residential development, new business creation, and current business organic growth. I'd like to make some general observations, both as a councillor and as a ratepayer who employs around 200 people in this Shire. In my view, the Shire's culture has recently changed, and changed very much for the better. It's more about can do rather than can't do. It's a culture that now understands that for this Shire to survive, costs need to be contained and rating need to be modest. It's a culture that now knows that systems, policies and procedures need to be challenged. Shire staff are asking, or starting to ask, the right questions. Do we need to do it this way? Do we need to do it at all? Is there a better way to do it? In finishing, I'd like to compliment the CEO and his management team on having the courage to embrace the challenge and implement change. Restructure, particularly if it involves redundancies, is always difficult and takes an immense emotional toll on those that are involved, and particularly those that have to deliver the bad news to co-workers. I also hope that the new council that will be elected next year will take on board what has been achieved through the term of this council and continue to support the CEO and his team so that we don't lose the change momentum that's built in recent times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perbrick. I think that everybody that lives in Nagambie is well aware of the significance of the bill as one of our major employers. And so we certainly need you to keep running to build. But in addition, I have heard on my grapevine that we've heard a lot of midnight oil on the subject of council finances. And I think that the answer to your question demonstrates that there's a process underway. And I think many people will be very reassured to know that. So thank you. I'm next going to introduce Councillor Pat Storer.
I'm Pat Storer.
So, Councillor is doubling as Councillor Storer, as a very busy person. The question that Councillor Coletto is going to answer is this. The Strathbogie Voices report, which Kate Strothers talked to you about at the beginning of the meeting, showed that in the view of the respondents to that report, 85% felt that council didn't adequately represent their views. The criticisms were that council lacked vision and that there wasn't very good consultation. So, Councillor Colleen, what are you going to do to improve community consultation on matters important to residents? And what's your strategy to regain community confidence?
Well, that's the easy one.
Okay, how's that? Awesome, trust that you're in a wheelchair because of the requesting your opinion. Right, sorry about that. I'm Colleen Filanetto and I was elected as a Seven Creeks ward member, which is your role. But I, along with all of my colleagues, represent the whole of the Shire, not just the ward that we were nominated from. I am speaking with Councillor Pat Storer, who's diligently dealing with a fire on the freeway at the moment, which I think some of you on the Nagambie guys might be out too. I won't go into the question, but I would like to just begin by saying I'd like to acknowledge that we have children in the room here tonight. They're our future leaders. I therefore ask us as adults, show each other's respect and communication, and showing what inclusive, respectful behaviours on our possibility to bring opinions can be done respectfully. This is where consultation is extremely important. It is important to note that 85% of the respondents on the Voices survey, which was members of the public, ratepayers and other that attended their meetings, said that this was a priority. There's a challenge for Council and we are up for it. In recent time, there has been an increased expectation that Council will consult with the community as the desire for further with the community, as the desire for information, progression and informed with so many avenues now to be communicated on, all of those other avenues of communication, not just word of mouth. And that's sometimes how rumours start. Council is adapting to this shift in community expectation by providing ongoing training in this area to management, staff and councillors.
We also need to provide better understanding to our local communities of the way the council operates. We are always open for suggestions on how we can do this better. None of us are hiding. Our details are published and accessible for anyone to contact us at any time, and we'll get back to you if we can't answer your call immediately. Council subscribes to the IAP2 public participation model. This is just a fancy word of a communication flow chart, basically, of how we consult, and many other corporate bodies and organisations use this tool. Plans to further develop this area are highlighted with the budget line item listed in the 15-16 draft budget released last night. This will provide budget to further develop any online community. In fact, our council plans packed with community consultation information. It has mentioned it no less than 7 times. What many residents aren't aware of is that the council supports the development of community-based action groups in each of our townships and provides a grant each year to facilitate their activities and ongoing development of community-driven action plans. We rely on these groups quite heavily to communicate to council the wants and needs and concerns of our townships, and would love to see these groups evolve further into our local communities. And some of those groups, from time to time, need a little bit more help to be able to continue to function in the best way that they can through bumpy times, and council is committed to that. There are also many other areas of council where we actively encourage community involvement. These include our youth committee, sustainable development reference group, sale yards committee, and numerous section 86 committees. Let's also not forget there is open question time at each council meeting. We believe in bottom-up approach and seek input from our community representatives and groups. The CEO and staff and councillors participate and sit on numerous working groups. The CEO, this is my personal opinion, I think he avails himself to very many community groups and spreads himself very thinly, but he does it very well. Thank you, Steve. I would like to, in closing, this is my opinion. I'm a ward council with responsibility for the whole of the Shire, as I mentioned. I've already mentioned about our contact details. There is a meeting held 12 times a year, or every month, excluding January. There is an opportunity to attend a council meeting, usually every third Tuesday. This offers 2 questions without notice. Not many councils do that. Without notice during the allocated time frame. If the answer to that question is not known, it is taken on notice and dealt with appropriately and efficiently. I don't see, this is my opinion, which I think I'd like to say that some of us are speaking with their own opinion, if I have an opinion. I don't see this opportunity taken up as often as it could be, and this would add to the communication discussion opportunities. If you do come to a meeting, I ask you to consider staying for the whole meeting, not just the question time, not just the item of interest on the agenda, as there may be more that you may learn on the agenda, as meetings always involve significant topics and information. So in this way, we're just like Massachusetts. Thank you for listening to me respectfully.
So Councillor Collins saying, get educated, get involved. So she's thrown out a bit of a challenge there. Maybe people will want to come back and talk about that some more in the open questions later. We have another question for Councillor Purbrick. There seems to be a widely held view that the council executive isn't accountable to ratepayers. I think that they're laws unto themselves. The Chief Executive has a 360-degree performance appraisal. So why aren't ratepayers involved in that, Councillor Purbrick?
comments. As a businessman, you have to say that's my bread and butter. I'm very happy to have to answer this question.
Alistair, can you just push the microphone to use force?
How's that? Better? Okay. So, the Shire Executive Management Team. I think there's a bit of rust
That's
here.
better.
I've got some movement.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you heard me when I was up first time. Then. Do it all again. The Shire Management Team are accountable to the CEO. The CEO is accountable to Council, and Council, and therefore councillors, are accountable to and elected by yourselves, by ratepayers. It's up to councillors to ensure that the CEO and his management team are serving the best interests of ratepayers and residents. In the same way, the company directors must ensure that shareholders' best interests are looked after. Council holds our CEO accountable for his performance by using key performance indicators. And one of those KPIs now is the 360-degree performance appraisal. Steve underwent this appraisal for the first time last year, and using this technique is an example of management best practice. I don't know of any other Victorian Shire that appraises their CEO in this way. Steve has confirmed that he will use the 360-degree appraisals to assess the performance of his management team later this year, which will be hugely beneficial to him and the organisation. Again, first or another first for the Victorian Shire. Now, for those of you present who don't know what a 360-degree appraisal is, let me explain it from a business perspective. 360 degrees means you touch 4 points, so north, south, east and west. The assessment is only done on management. The appraisal is only effective if all the people who work closely with that person being appraised do an assessment of that person. So it works like this. The person's manager does an assessment, the person's peers do an assessment, which in the case of the Shire CEO are the councillors. The person's direct reports do an assessment of his performance, which again in Steve's case is his senior management team. And the person does a self-assessment. The result, in my experience, and I've been using this tool for 20 years, is a very accurate reflection of how well or not a person is managing his or her people and managing peer relationships across departments. You've posed the question, why are ratepayers not included in the 360-degree appraisal of the CEO? The simple answer is that it's not appropriate for ratepayers to be a part of the assessment process because they're not close enough to the inner workings of the Shire and its managers to be able to make an accurate judgment of how well or not the CEO is performing. There are many community perceptions held about the performance of our CEO, but this is not necessarily reality. And if ratepayers completed an assessment, it would result in an inaccurate performance appraisal, in my view. The best way for ratepayers and the community to have a say in how the Shire is or isn't performing is by way of a survey, which is already done annually, and this provides valuable feedback to Council, the CEO, and his management team. Strathbogie Voices have done a very good job in getting their survey completed, and there's some very good information reflected in it, which is good take-home information for Councillor Steve and his management team, but it also confirms to me that there are a few perception versus reality issues that need to be addressed. So open lines of communication will be key to achieving this, And hopefully tonight's meeting will also serve its purpose as last night's meeting, which we had in Europe. The annual moment is a generic state government-sponsored Victoria-wide survey which receives information from about 400 residents of each participating council, which in the case of the Shire Strathbogie is 4% of our ratepayers and residents. 69 of 79 councils participated this year, and the results will be published in May. Councillors and our CEO have agreed that this survey does not meet our Shire's needs because it's too generic. And we need some quite specific feedback from you in areas that are not covered. We're currently considering whether a 2016 survey should be created, which will include Shire, or Strathbogie Shire, specific non-generic questions to ensure more meaningful feedback from Shire residents and ratepayers, which will better suit our Shire's needs. This decision is yet to be made and will be made next financial year. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Perbrick. Certainly in the Shire, as diverse and spread out as Strathbogie, I think that unless there's a very comprehensive way of surveying community opinion, it's always going to be very hard for councillors to know what the community's thinking because of the very different circumstances that people at various ends of the Shire actually have. So we now have a question, another question, or this one is actually directed to Councillor McWilliams. Councillor Williams, would you like to stand up so everyone sights you? This is a question about public transport. We know that the council's represented on the V-Line reference group, but what's being done to improve the reliability of the train service and to improve connections with our nearest regional centre in Shepparton?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody, and it's nice to be here tonight. And I do see one of my ex-councillors down there, and maybe most I've been on council with, and I don't know whether Ron was here tonight or not, but they were both on council with me, so I've been there quite a long time, I can assure you. As part of my council portfolio, I've got to put the links on. I currently represent Urawa and Nagambie, the V-Line Community Reference Group. At this time, we are currently waiting to see if Minister Jacinta Allen is going to allow the Community Reference Group to continue. Member for Urawa, Steph Ryan, has already written to the Minister to show her ongoing support of this committee. And you'll wonder why I'm speaking about the North East line, but I'm going to get to the Shep line in a moment. At this stage, we have news on where this is standing, so we're waiting for it. I was asked to check if the XPT could stop at Jerome was informed that in fact the New South Wales do control the XPT, so we will not set up a meeting to try and get it there because New South Wales apparently sent a report back and said if you want to catch the XPT, you go from Benalla to Albury, catch it and then go to Melbourne or go to Sydney. So that's pretty handy if you're going back to Melbourne. You road halfway and they told us to go back to Albury and catch the train. So that's what you've got to put up with. Also, there were some rough patches between the Town and Seymour where the buffet was closed because it was too rough and the buffet crew got injured because the track was very rough, but it's, I must say it has improved out of sight. The XPT is older and maybe, so they're talking about putting buses from Sydney to Melbourne and getting rid of the XPT. It was given great support, I was given great support, and this is where this will fit in with Nagambie, for a Sprinter shuttle service between Albury to Seymour, and then one train into Southern Cross, which would join up with the Shepparton to Seymour Sprinter service or a shuttle service. And I'll tell you what happened. That the opportunity was, when I brought this up at our meeting, I was told that Shepparton was given the opportunity of weather to have a Sprinter service during the day or the early morning train at 5:15 from Shepparton. And they opted for the early morning train. So that left the Nagambie people and the people who could have got the good service from Shepparton to Seymour and back and to their health or whatever the needs may have been. And there's 14 people, I believe, used the train from Shepparton to Melbourne at 5:15. So unfortunately, I did try to get that, and I was told that that's what happened. And if you have any thoughts and support for that, I spoke to Shaman Stone about it, and Shaman has spoken to me, and she was very, very disappointed that happened. And I would also ask you to talk to our local bureau member, Steph Ryan, to try and get a Sprinter service, because I think it's very, very much needed for the communities when you have to go to Seymour. Not all of us have got cars, or if you've got to go to Melbourne for medical or whatever the case may be. But there is a train, there would have been a train from Seymour to Shepparton, vice versa. And the reason I sort of supported that, and I'll tell you for why, I got off the train one day at Seymour. I think it was 3:30, and the young bloke was talking to me, so I've got to wait 2 or 3 hours for the Shep train to come so I can get to Shepparton. So I can see what he was talking about. It took me, and this is gospel, it took me 4 months to get my ticket, the validation ticket at Seymour Station, and it took me 4 months to get that validated fixed up, because there was four different routes that had to say whether it went across the line in 4 different areas. So I must thank you for that, Malcolm, because Malcolm brought it to my attention, and we were able to get that. I've lobbied for better disability access, and there is only 4 places in the guards van. If you don't book, you can't get a ticket. If there is a cancellation, or it's proved that there's something happened to the V line and the train doesn't go, then the V line will pay for a taxi for the disability to get to where they want to go. So in the wash-up, I must say that both the Mayor and the CEO and myself, have been to some fast rail, the new fast rail idea from Melbourne to Tullamarine to Shepparton, Mypole, and then on to Albury, then on to Brisbane. I probably never see it, but I hope that one day we will see that. I think it's 3 hours to Sydney, so it would be very good. But anyway, I'm not quite sure whether this group will keep going, but if it does, I'll still be pushing for Nagambie to get a Sprinter train. Thanks very much.
Transport's a subject we're going to have to keep on your wheel about, Councillor. Now, next question is a question for Councillor Colleen again. The natural environment is rated by residents of Strathbogie as being very, very precious and absolutely vital to their well-being. I wonder if you could say what the Shire has in place, what structures and organisation the Shire has in place to protect and even enhance our environment.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, we've got that. Could I just please just add, because it's relevant, if I may, to Councillor Williams about transport and about the advocacy and the roles that I've been able to position myself to, of people with a disability, of people with limited mobility and the issues that can be faced. There's nothing like being the Deputy Mayor and being put in the luggage compartment of a Shepparton Nagambie train at Seymour because I can't fit through the doors of the carriage. Fortunately, having one of those techno devices that we all sometimes hate, I was able to take photos of myself and forward them and have several very quick meetings at their request of the Ombudsman. I am now in a position where I will be helping train V-Line staff. One of the sessions is next week about people with limited mobility and accessibility issues and the challenges. And I have ongoing dialogue with V-Line over that, and so does Councillor Williams. This has also allowed me to be appointed to a ministerial advisory committee VDAC, which is a very heavyweight committee about people with disabilities. And in the rural communities, we just want access and equity. We don't want anything special, but we want what we deserve. I just felt that that was relevant. I'm sorry. Get on my high horse. We are very well aware of the communities of Strathbogie are blessed to live in such an amazing environment. Many feel the built and natural environment is something we can all take for granted sometimes though. As a councillor, I think it's important, while I have personal views and passions, I have to continually consider through the diversity of responsibilities and the reconciling of my role to the business of council and all its complexities. All aspects of council, community, including environment, all ripple and connect in every day and every way. They cannot be one without the other, in my opinion. The community groups around the Shire with varying interests in aspects of their space all contribute, none more so than some of the groups of Euroa and Violettown, for example. We are on the same team. We are on the human being team, so we need to respect that and work together. The question asks structures to support and protect and enhance environment. Senior staff have received carbon management training. Continually, the CEO and his directors encourages and supports staff training and the use of specialists in times that we may need some specialised advice or work done for the Shire. This too includes locals being asked for their opinion on certain issues. I know some may feel this is not often enough, something to work on for all, which needs to be realistic. Many environmentally aware things are being done. Our lighting is being replaced with less energy using bulbs, which has reduced the electricity bill of the main council offices of an estimated $25,000. To the use internally in simple things of minimising printing, the appropriate management of waste materials with our roadworks, our oils, lubricant, containers, roadmate materials, bitumen tar are dealt with within the guidelines and appropriate to do so. Our vehicles and machinery choices are environmentally considered where possible. Our garden towns landscapes, use of appropriate plantings, using more natives as seed planted at the new Seven Creeks comfort stop. Natural environments where habitation of both human and animal and plant life need to coexist. Do any of us manage that perfectly? I don't know, as this is why there are varying opinions on what should and should not occur between environmental issues in particular. Shared creek or river front and waterway health through towns management, which is not without its challenges. Assets Department work closely with other governing authorities. This is the complexities, including the Catchment Management and Shop Authority, Delbert, was Debbie, don't know what it'll be next week, Golden Murray Water, Golden Valley Water, which impact on our formal structures. These policy and procedures to protect the national environment are connected to those other authorities as well as the state. This is particularly evident at Nagambie. The lake first and foremost a priority for Council on behalf of the Shire communities. The stakeholders involved who use this amazing space we have in our Shire cooperate to the Waterway Management Committee. Strathbogie is the only council who is the waterway manager that I'm aware of in the state. The potential for ecotourism growth managed through the various water and human activity is challenging, but one that is a priority of Council. This is reflected in committees, planning and supporting policy structures. Your lake and river, I enjoy and respect it greatly. Planning and building. Council incorporates water-sensitive urban design as a standard condition on all urban development to improve stormwater management and thus protect our waterways and natural environment. Also, building regulations ensuring at least that buildings are at a 6-star rating or above. Council has climate adaptation strategy that will no doubt be reviewed by the Sustainable Development Group and others. Referral authorities during planning process are sought to guide recommendations. Planning Department's knowledge is always growing. written structures in place to support the environment but not limited. There are written structures in place to support the environment but not limited to that. Numerous documents, plans, strategies, local planning policy and internal, external committee representation all goes towards this. I'm getting there, hang on. I'd like to just say that our plans, which I've spoken about here, but there are specifically environmental plans, urban tree management plan, environment strategy, strengthening Strathbogie in a changing climate, risk assessment and adaptation strategy, and the road management plan. We, Council of Strathbogie Shire, will continuously be reviewing our environmental policies and procedures as we do with all other policy, and the new sustainability will play a role in that, as does every community member, ratepayer of the Shire, to our consultation process when it's time to do so.
Thanks. I'm wondering if all folk who are crowded in the doorway, if there's anyone who'd like to come and sit at the front, they're very welcome to do so. There's also some standing room on this side of the hall, and if anyone wants to come across, the rest of you might like just to stand up and turn around to give your legs a bit of exercise. You people in the doorway, you just stand there, or do you want to do it again? Okay, right, okay. I'm going to hear from Councillor Little. Councillor Little, would you like to stand up so everyone can see you? Councillor, there are very few people living in Strathbogie, and the question is, how can the very Cluey residents help the council improve their performance in many areas? How could you develop a strategy to take advantage of the knowledge and skills of the ratepayers?
Surrounding area. This is a very interesting question because it tends to divide the community into two groups. Firstly, residents that have great and significant expertise, common sense, and are specialists in their field. And secondly, residents who are not well qualified but have enormous common sense, are streetwise, and have excellent thoughts on community matters. These two groups possess talent and ideas that need to be tapped. And then there is a third group, drawn from the whole community, and they are the councillors and the council staff who form the team of Strathbogie Shire. The question is, how can the Shire tap all this talent and expertise for the benefit of all concerned? I can't tell you how they will take advantage, but I can offer some thoughts on the matter. They're conduits, open to everyone and anybody who wishes to use them. The following ideas, in a way, present a system that allows the council to tap that talent. Some of these conduits are: one, there are two business groups, one in Euroa and one in Nagambie. There are action groups in every town. We have open council meetings, which has already been touched on, where questions can be asked without notice, seeking information which could enlighten people on how and why we make some of the decisions we do. 4, there's a team of 7 councillors whose contact details are readily available, all willing to take on board any constructive ideas or suggestions offered for the betterment of the Strathbogie Shire. 5, an excellent team of council staff who, by appointment, are only too willing to give their time to listen to your ideas. 6, Council run many open-type discussion sessions throughout the year, discussing, for example, heritage issues, budget issues, general management issues, long-term financial and planning issues. And 7, Council have advisory committees such as the Audit Committee, Nagambie Waterways, Recreational and Commercial Stakeholders Advisory Committee, and Sustainable Development Director Groups remain few. Public forums, I think, tend to encourage grandstanding and adverse criticism and seldom solve problems that to some seem overly important. The new term or action called kitchen table discussions seems to have some merit. Maybe a format could be worked on that is suitable and could be encouraged and encourage the advancement of Strathbogie Shire. Maybe this is an idea to be formulated and discussed by Council. In the meantime, we should encourage those members of the community who feel they have something of significance to offer Strathbogie Shire to take their ideas to and support their local business groups, their local action groups, both of whom in turn feed those ideas. Talk to your councillors who could, if necessary, arrange a discussion at an assembly of councillors held on most Tuesdays. Make an appointment to talk to the relevant council staff member. And it's very important that if you wish and you should, make a submission on the draft budget, the draft strategic resource plan or the draft council plan, all of which will shortly be on public exhibition. In November 2016, council elections are due to be contested. We need enthusiastic, preferably younger people to lead the Shire into the future. People with significant expertise, common sense and with street wisdom. If anyone is prepared to offer their time and knowledge, like current and previous councillors have, for heaven's sake, put your name forward. If you really believe that you can improve on what we already have in the Strathbogie Shire, either work through the conduits that I have briefly touched on, or become a councillor. You will then learn and understand more about how local governments work and how local government is restricted from above by so many state government laws. Become a leader and use your skills, your expertise and your street wisdom to assist from within to improve the Shire's performance in all its many and varied responsibilities. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Long. The next question is for Mayor Deborah. We all think the show should be well run. I think that's something that councillors and ratepayers would all have in common. So, the question's about council government. What's in place to review the internal and external processes of council? What's used? What are the guidelines for the hiring of consultants? And what opportunities are there for the internal development of our staff?
Thank you. And I would like to welcome all of the other people that have invited you today. It's really hard to get you guys to come in and be involved in something that's probably a pretty boring occasion for you. But very pleased to see you here. It's hard to get the young governance is actually a really huge subject, and it's not just about staff development or management consultant use. And in fact, the staff management falls to the CEO. Your elected council only employs one staff member, and that is the CEO. As codes of conduct and under statute requires, councillors are not permitted to direct staff and vice versa. Council manages the structure of the organisation through the budget, policy development and council plan. The CEO is managed through the review process and key performance indicators that we talked about before. It's the CEO's responsibility to implement the actions in the council plan. Good governance is about the process of making and implementing decisions. It's not about agreeing. It's about the best process we can provide within our means for making those decisions. And apart from the obvious things like planning and formal council meetings, it includes consultation policies and practices, meeting procedures, service quality protocols, councillor and officer conduct, role clarification between the operational side of the Shire, and strategic decision making and good working relationships in all directions. Words about good governance that come to mind are transparency, accountability, legalities, responsiveness, inclusiveness, effective, efficient and participatory decision making. Do I think we've got it right? No. Absolutely not. It's an ever-evolving learning curve, and and this council has come from a very poor attitude, an attitude of poor me, protectionism and top-down governance. This is my opinion. The days of the authoritarian, I will tell you what you need, should need to be over. That is the way of the future. Altering the organisation's attitude takes time, and a CEO who has a willingness to implement change, and I believe our CEO has got that willingness. We have had problems in the past, but if you were actually in our shoes, you would see the changes that are occurring in the last few years. I do believe in bottom-up governance. That's about inclusiveness and collaborativeness. We are making progress, providing much more opportunity than in the past few, but you need to turn up. You need to be part of it. A list of adopted plans, policies, strategies and reports relating to the corporate operations can be found on the website. Bottom-up governance is about community planning and grassroots levels, and I think that's what you all want. This is actually why the action groups were set up, and I've seen something a little strange when we talk about the action groups, but if you want to see more local expertise, you actually need to attend these. This is your way into that. The action groups are given an untied annual council community fund. They are not exclusive and should be operating as a democratic citizens' council. Council does not appoint the community members. It falls to the people who come to the meetings, and you're all invited, including you guys. We have committed in our council plan to support the community plans the action group creates. That's empowerment. And things like the skate park and other things that are in this community that have gone through the action group, they will be supported by council because that is part of our commitment to you. Governance is also about recognising the different roles councils have from the officers. Councillors as individuals, including the mayor, have no powers at all to make decisions. They can only occur when we act as a majority of councillors in a formal council meeting. At forums and assemblies of councils, we can give an indication and argue the issues, but the actual decisions are not valid until a formal process is a properly advertised council meeting is done. We use a lot less external consultants than they used to, and we follow the Procurement Australia guidelines these days, and are looking for more local expertise on a number of advisory groups, committees and specific steering groups for large projects. The mechanism is there for the community to be involved in, and it is supported by council, so please take advantage of it. If you've got something to offer, please bring it forward. We might disagree, we might get frustrated with each other, but that is actually communication. You don't get to pick and choose who you play with as a councillor, and you don't get to pick and choose who you play with in the community. Not if you're a part of an inclusive communication process. I believe we're heading in the right direction. We need to constantly monitor and review our processes, assess ourselves and our performances. We do peer reviews, benchmarking and with our surrounding shires, and we're currently monitored by a number of independent audit committees, VAGO, IBAC, the Local Government Inspectorate and Local Government Victoria. Steve, you'll need to talk about the staff thing. So,
Thanks, Deb. In relation to the staff, they all go through an annual performance review. In addition to that, I'll be implementing this year the 360 review for all directors and their senior management team. Out of those reviews, we have a 12-month professional development program, either run by the Municipal Association of Victoria or local government professionals. Just quickly picking up on Deb in relation to audit committees and good governance. Council has an audit committee under the Local Government Act. It has 3 community members on it. One of them actually chairs the meeting. It has a councillor that represents councillors, and it has the relevant staff on it. They also, on that committee, have internal and external auditors appointed by the State Government, Victorian Auditor General, and the audits are then done by Local Government Victoria, the Inspectorate, in relation to our policies, procedures and good governance. They work through every area of council. They have a rolling program that's adopted by council in relation to auditing the departments. Just recently, we've adopted a procurement policy with the City of Greater Shepparton that will ensure that we meet the Australian procurement guidelines in relation to the performance and appointment of any consultants as needed. Thanks, Jim.
This is the last pre-submitted question, and then we'll be able to move incidentally the first person that speaks to the floor. This question's about climate change. And I'm going to ask Councillor Wetherill to respond. But it's been a matter of great interest, I think, to Stratford Voices. In fact, I went to their perhaps 6 or 8 weeks ago on climate change. It was absolutely packed out, with the difference that compared to tonight's meeting, they actually gave us lunch, which was very nice. We had a day meeting with the best experts that Melbourne University could offer, who actually focused on the implications of climate change for Stratbogie, which was very fascinating. And in fact, Stratbogie Voices might up to consider in their next round running that particular forum in Nagambie, because it really was very fascinating. So the question is, that particular forum showed that the community is very concerned about the challenges of climate change facing rural communities. So what's Council doing about it, Councillor Wetherill?
Good evening. I represent Mount Wombat Ward. That is a large area east of the Hume Highway, high country, the other side of the road. Tonight I'm addressing the environment. I've noted on the council agenda since year 1 that on page 3 it's the top item on every council agenda. So council do take the environment seriously. 6 councillors, to my knowledge, are very environmentally sensitive, friendly, and take a deep interest in every action of council and look to preserving the future of generations to come. Tonight, I need to challenge you all and invite you to respond to tonight by taking up a pen, and there are 3 documents that are entering the consultation process for you to consult on: the budget, the long-term financial plan and the rating strategies. Those 3 documents need your comments. I invite you to put pen to paper. They are draft documents. They will be finalised, closes on the 8th of May. I have very little time to consider 3 major topics, and I need to hit them with a Nagambie focus. First one is waste management. The CEO introduced the 3-bin system, which will bring green waste and food waste into a recycling project. That will mean that product that was going to landfill in the past will now go into a recycling process and turned into compost. We hope that this will become a valuable tool for everybody's garden in the future. So that is being introduced in July of this year, and we have introduced that in terms of costing at a rise of 2.9% increase in costs. In past years, one ratepayer, or every ratepayer, will note that there's never been less than 4% waste management increases in charges. So we're bringing in a 3-bin service. It's going to be at a much more environmentally friendly cost, and we are receiving a cheque back of $1,000 per week from the recycling company that is doing the recycling on your behalf. And what is going to happen with the 3-bin service is that recycling will become actually something that we can all take pride in. In the past, we've probably buried more rubbish than we've recycled. The Nagambie tip site, transfer station, we passed at last year's budget for that to have a serious upgrade. Now that is well in the final planning stages, and the officers will be rolling out plans for redesign of that facility so that it is much more user-friendly. At the moment, I think I could apologise and just say that it's less than satisfactory. The most important subject that I wanted to talk to you about tonight was Goulburn Valley Water, Goulburn Murray Water have been the custodians of our potable water in this state and in our area. And of course, to protect our water supplies, which are absolutely vital to the whole community, they've had very strong covenants on property development, especially on waterside properties. That has meant that many of you have found it very difficult to get planning permits in very sensitive areas. Now, we have undertaken over the last 18 months, and in July of this year, there will be some very good news for you all, that planning permits in places like Kerwin's Bridge should become available, providing those people who seek those are prepared to manage their septic tanks in a very sustainable and responsible manner. In the past, we've put septic tanks in the ground and buried them and forgot about them. This can no longer continue. We have to, as human beings, clean up our act, get our act together, and don't pollute the waterways or anything else. We have to manage our waste and manage our waste responsibly. Finally, the last item I needed to quickly touch on, the question of the Goulburn Valley Greenhouse Alliance. Copped a bit of a bag in the local press about not achieving a great deal. Well, I'm going to defend that as a board member by saying that they turned a $7 million grant by 6 councils into something that a whole host of other councils have jumped on the bandwagon. Nearly everybody in the North East Corridor have joined, and it's now turned into a $15 million grant process from the previous Labor government to transfer all of our street lighting over to modern LED lighting. And that lighting has the impact of the globes last for 50,000 hours. That means that they last for a hell of a long time and they don't need maintenance. The power consumption falls alarmingly, and we're expecting to make savings of something like 70%. But there will be more lights go in. But I noticed on this year's budget for the Shire of Strathbogie, we spent $39,000 on street lighting across the whole of the Shire. For the first year, we are now seeing the results. $139,000. Did I forget that? We've seen the first return of that program from the Greenhouse Alliance. We've cut our street lighting bill by $4,000. And this is coming out of savings. Not less lights, but it's better lights, more of them, and giving a lot better service to you, the community. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an interesting account of 4 measures the council is adopting to support our environment. It's not clear to me from the answer whether the council does have a comprehensive policy about climate change. It's an environmental policy. Okay. That may be something people want to follow up a little later. We're now going to turn to the session where we do Q&A, really. There are 3 rules attached to this. The first thing is stand up if you have a question. There are people that will rush to you with a microphone once you're into that. You need to say who you are, what your name is. You need to say who you would like to answer your question, and then to ask your question as briefly as you possibly can. We will have, again, the timer on your respondent, on the councillor you asked the question to. Although I have to say I'm very impressed with your timekeeping, councillors. We may not even need to run the timer over you, but we want to get through as many questions as we possibly can. But first, I think Jack has a question that he'd like to address to us. So come forward. You've got the mic, Jack. Good. Would you like to stand around and look at everybody? This is Jack Saxon.
This is not really a question, it's just...
Jack, put the microphone up a bit higher.
Turn it on.
Put it up a bit higher opposite your mouth. That's right. Yeah.
skate parking. There are many kids in Nagambie, visitors and people passing through our town who ride BMX, scooters and skateboards and would love to be able to ride at a skate park in Nagambie. Skateboarding, BMX riding is sport and for people a lifestyle. It is great exercise, bringing your arms and legs simultaneously. Surprising to some, skateboarding, scootering and BMX riding is nowhere near as risky as playing footy. There is data out there that supports this. When you fall in a skate park, you learn from your mistakes. You learn to adapt and fall correctly so you don't injure yourself. You keep trying tricks until you get it right. I've been told that the skate park in Nagambie has been a topic of the Nagambie Action Plan since at least 2009, and we still don't have one. We would like to tell you that where we're at so far with this project. We have a committee made up of a group of teenagers and kids, and we have adults willing to be part of this committee and help us drive this project. At this stage, our committee is part of the Nagambie Action Group, and we have their support. We have researched various designs and looked at the costing of a medium-sized skate park for skaters, scooters and BMX riders. We believe the construction cost to be approximately $300,000. We know the youth in Nagambie support this project. We would like to let you know what we want from the Shire. We need the Shire support with assistance in applying for the grants, and we would like someone, a youth worker, to help us in asking for private sponsorship and to listen to our ideas. And lastly, we would like the Shire to commit our allocated funds to this project in the next budget and make this project happen too. Thanks for your time.
Under the table, who would not be aware of that at the back of the room. So I'm going to ask our Mayor to respond to that question.
Thanks very much, Jack, and thank you again for coming. Yes, look, as has been mentioned, this group is a subcommittee of the Action Group, and we do have in our commitment to support the planning of the Action Group. So you will receive support. I believe, and I've had conversations already with a number of people who were involved in the setting up of that your committee about what your aspirations are. I believe at the moment we're trying to identify a location and get together a submission type plan. We need to have some planning around that. Part of the great thing about having the youth involved in this type of project is they actually learn themselves how to go through this sort of process. And I think that's a fantastic opportunity so that it will also encourage you to maybe be future leaders. I might see you standing in one of these positions one day. But look, yes, the council will be very interested to see when you've got your plan together. We would love you to come and present to us as a group, and if we can help support you, we certainly will. The way that we usually would do that would be by trying to get funding from the various funding opportunities that are out there. We need to talk about what sort of seed funding that we need to have. This is all part of the budget discussion test. So yes, we are very keen to hear about it, and we will support you through that process, and let's see where we can go. I know there's another one in Avenel too. Might be opportunity to maybe do something combined. That'd be great.
Thanks very much, Jake and young people.
May I ask a question? Where do you intend
Excuse me, who's speaking now? Who's speaking now?
Where do you intend to put the skateboard park?
I think there is no plan for the skate park at the moment.
Population going to be involved there beforehand in case they don't agree?
Yes. There will be a consultation about the skate park. Yes, through the action group.
Thank you.
Now, Josh.
Yes, I have two short questions actually.
But do you have any preferences to who you address your question to?
I'll tell you the question and you can answer. My name is Diane Grant. My first question is on behalf of the RSL. I've been lucky to become a new secretary, and I've got very concerned when I've been going through 4 years of correspondence to the Shire about moving that Cenotaph Memorial. And there was no reply,
until just recently. I've got the letters here, and it also, one of the letters from Mr. Doherty, who is here tonight, it said that the Nagambie RSL sub-branch is duty-bound under the Constitution to confer with the Heritage and Commemorations Committee of the Victorian branch of the RSL regarding any planned activities that impact on war memorials. That committee has this responsibility for all monuments in Victoria. Now, when the community built that memorial, they funded it and they put the RSL in charge as caretakers and guardians. Now, we would like to have a consultation with some of the Shire representatives, so who would like to be able to answer that for me, please?
Councillor Deborah.
Just going back to my previous comment, there is no plan to move the cenotaph. Yes, there's been conversations with the RSL over a period of time, and the last correspondence that I was aware of that came back from the RSL, that I personally am aware of, was that you didn't want to see the cenotaph moved. Hence, there's been no more
But
discussion
there's no
about it.
replies, I think. There's no replies to those.
Well, if there's been, I'm not quite sure what letter came to us with that comment. I didn't know whether it was a question or whether it was just a statement. So I haven't seen that, and I would appreciate seeing that.
Well, one was addressed to you.
Well,
One was addressed to you in 2013.
well, if it hasn't been responded to, I would answer why.
Responded to a year later, by Mr. Dawson.
Okay, well, as I said, Di, please, if I can have a look at that paperwork, I'd be very interested.
And my second concern, 3 years ago I wrote to the Shire on the flooding of the drainage at my house at 200 High Street and across the road at the United Pepper Station. It floods past 4 houses when there's bad rain. There's an easement of 500 metres of water down my lane beside me. And I wrote to the Shire twice. I even sent personal photographs to every Shire councillor and I've not had a reply. I got a workman, Doug Quinlivan, come up to see me. He said, "Guy, this has been a 20-year problem, this spoon drain. It's now 3 years since I reported that. But I had no reply to see what's going to happen with the drainage, the north and south of the town that floods every time we have heavy drainage."
Okay, sorry, again, did Doug come and see you after you sent the...
Yes, he said I couldn't give you any sandbags or a boat.
So, take that on notice as well, and that would be in response to your letters that came through that I got. I forwarded it on to our Director for Asset Services with more of the lights that would have actually come to that.
I'm still waiting.
I think there's a question at the back. Can you wait until the microphone comes to you? You need to say your name.
Kevin Fox is my name. We've just heard my questions to the Mayor. Yep. We've just been advised that we're not going to have a bulldozer go through the town cenotaph and war memorial. That is a significant change to the streetscape plan that I've seen around the town. And I'm just wondering when we're likely to see an amended copy of the streetscape incorporating the town cenotaph. Thank you.
Are you referring to the map, the one that's on the wall of the information centre?
There's one on the information centre.
That doesn't show the moving of the cenotaph. Yes. The one on the information centre shows that the cenotaph is moved.
And on what was sent by the Shire recently. Still on the map.
So that must have been from the original conversations and the concept drawing. Sorry, but we will get that. Looked at because it's not.
If there's a new plan
it's not the
been out
working
that I've missed, then I apologise.
No. Look, the fact of the matter is, anything in that area, nothing. We don't have any funding to go any further with that, and because there's been community concern about the way that's progressed, it will be put off. I mean, the likelihood of it happening in the next 5 years is almost impossible. And so the time of deliverance between has been so long that there would have to be another community consultation anyway when it comes to that.
Well, that shouldn't happen at all. That shouldn't happen at
No,
all.
I'm not talking about the cenotaph, I'm talking about the actual main.
The
if
word
another
you used
council
at the
gets
start
in,
was
and
at the moment.
if there is another, I can't predict what another council might do. That would be a conversation the community have with whoever you elect.
Should never happen anyway.
Well, that's there.
There's a question over here. Just
Hello, my name is Steve Osborne, and my question is to Steve. I met this afternoon at the Information Centre. I went to a meeting last week at invitation of council to learn about procedures and whatnot. It's very interesting. But you said tonight that full-time staff had decreased in a certain period of time, and that's great. But I was curious to know, in that same period of time that you mentioned, what's been the difference in the employment of external consultants? Has there been a different balance? And the second part of my question is to Steve, because it relates to costs as well. You also mentioned about services that you're sharing with Shepparton, and I was curious about other things that might come under that sharing umbrella. I think we call it share orders.
Graders with
Right.
That's it. Great. Now, what other things are there that could be done the same way?
Yeah, starting with question number one in relation to consultants, I'll give you a very quick example. With the planning team, we reduced them by 2 staff, which meant 2 motor vehicles, no long service leave, no annual leave, no work cover, and we bring in a consultant at peak times when we need to deliver on any planning permits during the specified time. So instead of having staff members sitting there through peaks and troughs, we utilise them to the best of our ability. What we also do with Shepparton and ourselves with the shared services arrangement, which is a legal arrangement, alliance, is utilise their staff so that we can get consistency across both councils. What we'll end up doing is you'll be able to put a building, planning permit, any of those at either council because the operations will be the same.